Hello everyone, long time no see. It's been a while since I last produced a blog, and at the moment it's the beginning of November and there's not too much going on. So I thought I'd do something about what's been happening since the last time I did a blog. The beginning of the season was terrible, with all the wrong sorts of weather at the wrong time. In fact, it was so bad that the president of the beekeeping association I belong to, who has been a commercial bee farmer for many years, said this: "Normally I only extract honey in May and August, but in May this year things were so bad I decided for the first time in 15 years I wouldn't extract any honey. The bees needed it more than I did." As well as that, I normally lose 1 to 2 colonies a year out of the 25 I have, but this year I lost 6 and I wasn't alone in having problems. The weather in the second part of the year was an improvement, and I was able to replace some of the colonies that had failed with swarms I collected. I'm still a swarm collector for the Bedfordshire Beekeeping Association and was called out to about 20 swarms, and there were 2 worthy of comment. The first was a swarm at a house in a village next to mine. Mike and Joe were very interested in the bees and wanted to know how and why they swarm. I explained a colony splits into 2 and the bees in their garden probably came from a nearby beekeeper. Joe said, "Do you think they could have come from here?" pointing down the garden. And at the top of a tall tree at the end of their garden there were bees coming and going from inside the tree trunk. A feral bee colony. Feral bee colonies are very rare and I've never seen one before. Apparently they've been there for some years. The swarm was collected and taken away, and a couple of days later they phoned me again. They had another swarm. It was much smaller than the first one and is what is known as a cast. When a colony swarms for the first time, the old queen leaves with about half the bees, and the bees produce several new queens to replace her, and they fight it out and the winner stays in the original colony. However, it is possible one of the new queens also swarms and takes some of the bees with her. We saw the queen and she was very small. I put her in a queen catcher from which she managed to escape and return back to the swarm. When I took the swarm home, I was setting the bees up and she managed to escape again. So she's now known as Houdini. The other highlight was going to a swarm hanging from a tree in someone's garden a few miles down the road. Sometimes people with swarm wants to get involved with what I'm doing, so I take along a suit and gloves. Jackie was very into it and very much wanted to get involved, so I went to get a suit for her. As I got back, I could see that the cluster of bees was beginning to break up, and I said to her, "I think they're on the move." And this happened.
That's incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that typical that you turned up?
I know. Come on, come back, girls.
Oh, Lord. Wow, look, and they're all gone. Let's look at the tree.
Yeah, there won't be anything left.
Wow, look at that. Look, they're on the house. Incredible. Shame.
It is a shame.
It is, isn't it? And I was going to get a suit.
I know. They're gone.
Thanks to the press, people are nervous of swarms, but they are entirely harmless, and being in the middle of a flying swarm is something quite special. Not such a good thing happened when I was asked to collect swarms from a garden in Biddenham, outside Bedford. I'd been there to the same address twice last year, and also to their neighbour's house to collect a swarm. This year I collected another 2 and a third one absconded before I could get there. All of the swarms came from beehives in a neighbour's garden just the other side of the fence at the end of their garden. The worrying thing was that Karen was liable to a severe reaction to a bee sting and was very nervous about going into her garden during the summer. It's widely accepted you should not put beehives anywhere near houses, but the beekeeper, whose bees they were, didn't seem to care, and was also a hopeless beekeeper and had no idea how to look after them. The council were also pretty useless, and I wanted to help Karen get the hives removed, and eventually they were moved away. At the same time, a friend of mine was mentoring 2 new beekeepers who wanted a swarm. However, they were going to put the bees far too close to other houses, and finally we decided to refuse to give them a swarm. At the same time, at school end, 2 people were stung by my bees in the new location I'd moved them to. Neither of them complained, in fact apologised for being stung. However, all this led me to make the decision I had to move the bees again. So just to recap on this whole moving saga, it started at the end of last year. The farmer wanted to clear his streams and cut back his hedgerows, so he asked me if I could move the hives just so he could get his machines in. So I moved them halfway across the field, and when all the work was done I realised that once it had all been cleared, the field was going to be far too exposed to keep bees. So Martin, the farmer, suggested I move them to the other side of the field, but the problem was there was a footpath on it. I was told there was no problem, and some of the locals didn't seem to worry about it, and I have done a video about all of this, and there is a link up there somewhere, and also be in the description of this blog. However, I then had the situation where the lady in Biddenham, Karen, who was anaphylactic, was having to deal with this idiot beekeeper who allowed his bees to swarm. They were just at the end of her garden, and I helped her to get him sort himself out and move the bees. I'd also refused to give some bees to new beekeepers because they weren't going to keep it in a safe place. And there were a few people stung at the new site at school end. So regrettably I had to start looking for new sites. Not an easy thing. You want a landowner who is reasonable, will allow you reasonable access to the bees. And also moving the bees themselves is quite difficult. Hives are extremely heavy things. However, Hazel, the daughter of the farmer, contacted me and said she'd found this place that she thought would be okay. It was called the Spinney, and it was on the farm still, and I went and had a look, and this is what it looked.
And here we are at the Spinney, as it will be henceforth known. I'm coming in from the top of the farm, as Hazel's dropped all of the fences, which means I only need to go through one set. The bees used to be over the back there, beyond where those 2 black things are, and where we're going to go is just to the left of that little tree in the centre, over there. So let's go and have a look. This is the track where I normally go to the bees, and today we're going to go to the new place, the Spinney, which is over there. So I drive along here a little bit, and you can see the gap over there perhaps. And somewhere along here on the left are a couple of little red posts, which should be here. Nope. Here they are. Oh, you see there's 2 red posts over there. Now, the posts there, you can see them there. I use those just to pin down the electric fence, even though it's not on at the moment, but I'll do it anyway. So, I'll just stop for a second. Okay, I've pinned the fence down, and we can head across the field. The sheep are all in the far field, as you might be seeing the gap. The ground's reasonably soft, reasonably firm. Around there it's a bit mushy, so I'll try and avoid that and swing round, and here we are, the Spinney. Whoops, sorry. Whoops. Thank goodness for a Land Rover. And this is it. So I'll just park up and we'll have a walk round. So this is the bee's new home, the Spinney as it's called, and we'll just have a walk round. This gap here you can see through to where the bees used to be over there, so that's not too far away, but far enough. Field itself, at the moment it's got sheep in there, and it's got a fence going up this side, and there's enough room to sort of walk through along here. Although Hazel has said if I want to, I can just move the fence out a foot or so just to make life a little bit easier. Now, looking back for it this way, I think I've got about 8 hives to get up here, so they are going to be set into the hedgerow up as far as whatever. So I've got 2 jobs really: get some space ready, as I've sort of done there, then bring the bees up, and just carry on doing that.
Now, there is this sort of principle of moving bees that you do at a short distance or a long distance, nothing in between, and you either do it less than 3 yards or more than 3 miles. So what that meant was I started getting involved in musical beehives, where I was moving hives from Ravenston and back again, and a friend of mine had some space in Milton Ernest, and I would move the bees away, leave them there for 2 weeks, and then move them back to the Spinney. Physically, moving bees, beehives is no fun. You do it at night, so all the bees, or as many as you can, are in the hive rather than flying back to find the hive has gone. You have to seal the entrance up with foam or bits of wood, and then you move the things, and they are very, very heavy. So these are the moves that I've done this year. Now, I hoped I'd finally finished moving them all, but then Hazel contacted me again, and apparently they wanted to put some fencing up behind where the bees now are. So again, I had to move the bees about 10 yards so they could get the machines into the right areas to do the hedging. And just before Christmas I was told and discovered that the fencing had been done, so now I can actually move the bees back to where hopefully they're going to stay for some time. So that's been 2021, which has frankly been a bit rubbish. Hopefully 2022 will be better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.